Chapter 4. Izuku woke up to the sound of his beeping alarm. With the sluggish movement of his arm he tried to find his phone, intent in turning off the obnoxious noise. He didn't even remember setting up that particular song. After a few pats around the usual laying place of device, he decided that he was too lazy to bother with it and choose the easier option. "Alan, please turn off the alarm," he said, rolling across his bed. After a few seconds the alarm was still beeping. "Alan. You there?" Izuku raised his head, slowly opening his eyes and looking toward his desk. "Yes, unfortunately I am, sir," came the response. Monitor lighted up, blinding the now hissing Izuku. "I'm just waiting for you to get your lazy ass up, sir." "Well, I don't wanna," Izuku answered, falling back on the soft mattress. He stayed up till 3 a.m. to make sure everything was prepared and working properly as planned. He also gathered all of his semi-finished products to take them to UA, intending to use school supplies and finish them all up. "So do I understand correctly that you want to be late for your first day in U? Sir. Should I call Principal Nezu and relay that message?" Izuku all but jumped off his bed, landing comically on the floor. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, while searching his dresser for his underwear. "I've tried to get you to sleep earlier at least 10 times, sir, and when you finally decided to rest for the night, you just said to set up the alarm for you. So if anything it is your fault, sir." Izuku opened his mouth to talk back. "I've got it on the tape. Don't bother arguing with me, sir." Izuku just huffed, slightly regretting giving Alan a free will to create its own personality. He shook his head and left to get ready for the day. His first official day in UA high school, talk about exciting. After marking off the bathroom from his morning activities, Izuku slipped into his school uniform and marveled at his reflection. It still felt like a dream for him. Maybe he still was sleeping. He pinched his cheek and felt pain, so, unless he dreamed that feeling, it was real. After breakfast with his mom, grabbing his backpack and sport bag filled with electronics he made his way out. "Izuku, wait," came Mom's voice behind. Turning to her, Izuku saw her small and thin form tearing up a bit with proud smile on her lips. "You look cool, sweetie. Have a good day." "Thanks, Mom," Izuku smiled back, waving at her. During his train ride to school he felt people looking at him, sending him polite smiles. Was that the famous respect toward UA and its students? He was just starting school and everyone around him already were looking up to him, expecting great things. Most likely they thought that he was in hero course. If someone asked Izuku about it, he'd tell the truth. He didn't want fake admiration. He wanted people to recognize him for his deeds and inventions. UA's building was, as always, breathtaking for him. It didn't matter that for the last month he was coming here to work on a special project with the principal and power loader. It was his school now. Maybe he was still in bed. Another pinch said otherwise. "Sir, do you want me to guide you toward your classroom?" Alan asked, pulling Izuku out of his musings. "No, I'm good. I've already memorized most of the main campus layout," Izuku answered, stepping into school grounds. "Are you sure? We don't want you to end up in Midnight's arms again. Do we, sir?" Izuku shuddered at the memory of this particular accident. The worst part. He found himself enjoying a bit of her petting. "We agreed to never speak of it, Alan. Did we?" came back the cheeky response. "How are you feeling though, sir?" Izuku blinked at that and scratched his head. When Alan wanted he really was a great friend. If only he finally dropped the "sir" thing. Good. I can't wait for it to start. Izuku admitted, smiling slightly. "And you, Alan?" Just like the lines of zeros and ones. Back to being cheeky. Izuku smiled, shaking his head. He started wondering about his future classmates, remembering one in particular from the exam. He had to admit, she's talented, where everyone made 1 or 2 things, that girl ended up with 5. But during this she caused several explosions and a mini fire. Her proud laugh and the offhand comment that it was less than what she normally didn't help. Izuku found himself wishing that this pink-haired menace wasn't in his class. Shota slowly sipped coffee from his cat-themed mug in the teacher's lounge. He wasn't sure who made it, but damn him, it was good. Almost enough to show some of his heart and not make his students suffer. Almost. Thinking of students, his mind wandered to a particular one. Power Loader's genius boy. Shota had no doubt that kid was smart. Well, smart wasn't accurate. Nezu showed him the kid's IQ test. That boy really had a brain. Shota himself meet boy once. The mumbling that kid made, while gushing out all information about Eraserhead honestly gave him chills. Then he asked for an autograph and pulled a notebook containing said information and good-looking sketch of him seemingly out of nowhere. Shota didn't really know what to do. In his whole hero career he was never asked for one. In the end he just shrugged it off and fulfilled the kid's wish, gaining a blinding smile. Then Genius Boy gave him one of his inventions, a micro camera that was ideal for underground operations. Best thing about it, no one would be able to see it, because it blended perfectly into Shota's hero costume. But Shota knew a problem child, when he saw one. Call it his 7th sense, because the 6th belonged to finding cute, fluffy cats. That genius boy was sure to bring trouble, especially with that odd, positive vibe he gave off. When he voiced his thoughts to Nezu, the accursed rodent laughed a bit and told him about the kid's plan for the future, or at the very least a part of it. Hearing it, Shota wasn't sure if he was impressed or scared. Probably both. His phone pinged, signaling him it was time to get going and meet his new students, or playthings, as Midnight loved to say. She wasn't entirely wrong. Grabbing his beloved yellow sleeping bag and resetting his facial features, to completely dead inside, he made his way towards 1A. Momo wasn't entirely sure what to think of her classmates. Her whole life she was homeschooled and didn't have much contact with people her age. Her only interactions were limited to balls and tea parties her parents attended. Every girl there were just like her, prim, soft-spoken, giving of polite smiles, and all of the boys there, Momo had lost her count after the 5th time, she caught them, secretly, ogling at her body. But she was sure of 2 things. The extremely loud blonde with spiky hair and ego bigger than the whole school, and the little perverted kid with purple balls on his head were not on her list for potential friends. Ever. She wanted as little to do with them as possible. Already she caught little pervert stare at her body 4 times. Then came their homeroom teacher, and Momo again found herself unsure what to think. Judging from the dark bags under his eyes, he looked like he was about to drop to the floor on his next step. His state of wardrobe and hair made him similar to hobo living under a bridge. She knew it wasn't good to assume things about people. She was raised better than this, but she couldn't help but think that way this time. Aizawa-sensei gave them their PE uniforms and told them to meet him on the training field beside the school's gym. Good thing she already memorized school layout. After arriving, Aizawa-sensei told them about the Quirk apprehension test. Momo found herself intrigued by that and silently mused about it. The teacher most likely wanted to see them in action, to judge their control and fitness. After a short speech her teacher pulled out his phone and started tapping. When 10 seconds passed, Momo couldn't help but think about his rudeness. Answering a text mid-lesson. Unthinkable. Why did you hired? God damn it. Aizawa said irritated. Why is it not working? Stupid thing. Momo and many of her classmates tilted their heads at the scene. Did that man never had a phone in his hand? You know, you could just ask me to do something. No need for the rudeness, Aizawa-san. Came the response from the device. What the heck? Said someone from her class. Momo ignored the crude language and focused at the phone in the teacher's hand. Last time she was in UA, during her special exam for recommended students, she didn't hear it. Was it some kind of computer program or maybe someone called Aizawa-sensei? Sensei, what was that voice? Asked a girl with brown hair. Allow me to answer that, and Aizawa-san, please be so kind and stop blocking the camera feed from your shirt. I like to see my conversationalists. The device said again, and after the teacher rested his arm against his body, it continued, hello students of 1A, my name is Alan. Starting today you could consider me a helping program for the whole UA educational system. I'm pleased to meet you all and hope that we get along. Momo found her jaw dropping slightly, mirroring the state of most of her fellow classmates. That thing, Alan, sounded just like a normal, skin and bones, human being, and he was so sophisticated. That was some impressive technology. Holy shit. So UA has a robot of some kind. So cool, said boy with black lightning bolt on the left side of his hair. It's not a robot. Momo said, gaining everyone's attention. It's artificial intelligence. A very developed one. Am I right, Alan? Yes, Yaoyorozu-san, you're indeed correct. My creator is the very same person that greatly improved the villain bots from the entrance exam, and it's thanks to him that Uraraka-san's heath wasn't in any real danger from Zero Pointer. So it had access to student files. Wow, so he must be some really smart person. So cool. Said pink-skinned girl with horns, bouncing on her feet. Alan chuckled at comment and surprisingly it wasn't creepy. My creator is a first-year student, just like you. Now, that was something. Momo couldn't help but feel amazement. Whoever that student was, she must be very talented. Aizawa-sensei cut short the rest of the conversation, signaling the start of the test. To show them the school motto, he gave the ball to the rude blonde and said to throw it. She had to give it to him, he was powerful. After her classmates' cheer of happiness at the possibility of showing off, their teacher told them that last place is going to be expelled. An obvious lie in Momo's mind, no way UA would allow that on first day. But he had to agree with Aizawa-sensei, when he stated the grim truth about the world. Momo felt she did quite well on the test. She used her intelligence and quirk to create things that would allow her to score to the best of her ability. On the pure, physical part, she also did well enough. She also paid attention to her classmates, noting their quirks, scores and overall performance. That would be useful in the future, and to help her make some friends. No, she wasn't in despair for a normal contact with people her age. Not in one bit. She noticed that during the exercises Alan talked with class. Giving polite comments, motivating them to do their best. She felt slightly weird, when her cheeks heated up at one of his compliments. Excuse her, not every day a super advanced computer program says that her intelligence is magnificent. Aizawa-sensei showed them their scores. She was very pleased with first place. Maybe she wasn't as powerful as some of her classmates, but the sheer versatility that her quirk gave was more than enough to secure the spot. She used the scoreboard as a chance to learn the names of her classmates. She couldn't help but blink at the third place, who was Angry Blonde Pomeranian. The fuck? Who the fuck did this? Well, there was her answer. Apparently, Angry Blonde Pomeranian was that obnoxiously loud and rude boy with the explosion quirk. Momo, despite her well-mannered upbringing, found herself agreeing with the name displayed. He fumed, wild scowl on his face and popping sounds coming from his hands. Looks like his quirk matched his personality rather nicely. Or maybe it was the other way around. Why, I did it, I thought it was fitting for you. Came Alan's voice. She could only imagine him with very pleased smirk. You wanna fucking die, you stupid program. Just wait till I find your unit. I'll blow you to fucking scraps. The Pomeranian screeched while popping even more explosions. He could use anger management therapy. Momo believed that she would be able to find some specialist for him. Alan just laughed at the treat. I would like to see you try, firecracker. That made Momo raise an eyebrow. Despite Alan's almost never-changing tone of voice, that sounded like something personal. Very personal. Now, I believe my time with you all is over, and I'm looking forward to our next meeting. Till then, I wish you all a good day. Momo was very pleased that this program was so civilized. She hoped its creator at the very least matched Alan at that department. She looked at Aizawa-sensei, who was observing, Pomeranian, with narrowed eyes. He then moved his look from him toward a different student and pointed finger at him. You're expelled. Every sound stopped and all eyes looked at the boy, who had shocked expression. What? But I placed 11th. He all but shouted. Unlike Mineta, who gave his all, you simply took it at a leisure pace. You really think heroism is a game, don't you? I saw you during entrance exam, there you were at least trying. Get out of my class. Maybe the principal would be gracious enough to grant you a place in general ed. Aizawa-sensei answered in a serious, if not also annoyed tone. Momo felt disappointed. She believed that teacher lied to them to motivate them in his strange way. Well, it motivated some, but she really thought that it was just a harmless threat. She looked at Mineta, who rose from his knees and cheered loudly at dodging a bullet. She hated to admit that despite all the shameless ogling he did toward the girls, he really tried his best in all of the exercises. Although her mood was slightly dampened by the whole deception thing, she found herself excited at the prospect of tomorrow. She was in the hero course and finally had a chance to show everyone and herself that she wasn't just some rich girl with influential parents. A big explosion followed by smoke came from one of the nearby buildings pulled her out of her thoughts. Chapter 5. Two minds, or greater than one. Nezu looked at the monitor, his grin getting wider and wider. He really had to thank young Midoriya for suggesting it. Paying for those additional storage units was totally worth it. Nezu was sure about it. Watching his student progress in ultra-high definition while drinking a good cup of tea was his favorite thing to do now. All thanks to Alan and young Midoriya's micro cameras. He issued them to all teachers, doing also a favor to Alan, because the AI wanted to see with who he was talking to. He said it made him feel more human, which in turn made Nezu cackle. He savored yesterday's 1A Quirk Apprehension, very pleased with results. He should thank Alan later for all of the encouragement he gave to the students, making their job so much easier. To help students develop even more, just show them the footage to find what they struggle with and voila. It could also serve so many more purposes. For example, oh, there it was. That quick anger, that hostility, that animosity. So that was exactly what Alan mentioned to Nezu. He had to admit, when he was first presented with that information, he just threw that the kid was just really passionate about it, but now, judging from yesterday's video and many others that Alan provided, while asking for secrecy, Nezu saw the issue loud and clear. No doubt changing young Bakugo's name to that rude, but extremely hilarious, fitting nickname was just part of proving his point. He had another endeavor in the making, and he wasn't sure if it was good thing or not. Sure, Flame Hero was excellent when it came to crime fighting and investigations. But it all ended there. Of course, drive to be the very best was more than desirable, but if the cost of it was mass public property damage, was it really worth it? Alan, is this what you wanted to warn me about? Nezu asked, fondling with his paws on his frozen image of Katsuki Bakugo with his animalistic scowl and light explosions dancing across his hands present the screen. Yes, Principal. Alan assured, a small green LED showing his presence. I see the issue, I apologize for dismissing your concern earlier. Nezu said, frowning a little. No worries, Principal. Better now than never. Nezu sat there silently for a few moments. For now young Bakugo would be kept under close observation. If the boy won't show any signs of improvement, then adequate measures will be made. Aizawa his eyes on him from the start. Good thing that Alan also contacted him, that reminded him. Alan, why did you do it behind young Midoriya's back? Nezu was curious about his reasons for doing it this way. At first the program just stayed silent, but the green LED showing his presence on the computer remained. Although I am very grateful to Izuku for creating me, naming me and allowing me to have free will, I can see that he won't take any actions against that blonde menace himself. He still clings to that childish awe at Bakugo's power and drive, even when he doesn't see him as a friend anymore. I want to protect Izuku, and if it means doing things behind his back, so be it. Nezu nodded at that. Thank you for your honesty. Sighing, he turned in his office chair, and looked out of the window, his mind thinking about this whole situation. He would need time to fix it. Especially if young Midoriya's plan for the future came to fruition, the boy deserved it, and Nezu would be damned if he didn't help him. Time for some more tea and a heavy brainstorming session. Izuku's hands and mind were in that odd, but not undesirable, state of synchronization. It was simple really. His brain was just throwing numbers and words for his hand to write them down as fast as possible. Which was quite a bit. He remembers that one time, a paper was literally smoked from one of his creative endeavors. He was in UA, and had access to many, many more resources than he had before. His paycheck from his job in the comic and manga store, and his allowances could only support him that much. Seriously, to just get Alan working properly he needed to save up for almost a year, and the AI was only capable of doing simple tasks and holding basic conversations. Over the years Alan became more aware of himself, developing his own sense of being, as well as doing more and more complicated tasks, but it wasn't anywhere near nowadays level. Connecting Alan to UA's servers did so much good for him. Alan could do now so much more tasks at the same time, had access to many more information, and all for the small price of helping the school run its educational program. That was what he called a bargain. And now, having the opportunity to use UA's superior vast list of materials, Izuku had to run new calculations, and change some designs. All for better of course. Midoriya, what are you doing? Someone with a hoarse voice said. Izuku stopped. Looking up he saw ectoplasm staring at him, standing next to the whiteboard, with some complex equation on it. Wait, ectoplasm. Ectoplasm taught math. When his creative strike struck him, his class had a lesson with present Mike. Which was, a period ago. Or maybe it was 2. Wait, lunch was just around the corner, and after that he had the most glorious period he could have. 3 hours in UA's support department workshop. He had to do so much today. Oh, ectoplasm was glaring at him and he slightly shivered. He was mumbling again, wasn't he? 43 2/3. Izuku said as he went back to writing. He heard ectoplasm cough, which sounded strangely like, correct. Wasn't Nezu supposed to inform his teachers that taught math and physics, that he was allowed to do what he wanted, as long as he stayed quiet? He proved to Nezu that he was far above all they had to offer him in those. It was one of Nezu's logical tests or something like that. The small furred menace loved them too much. Speaking of menace. Izuku turned his head, half glaring at the form of his yesterday and most likely future cause of headaches. A pink-haired girl with amber eyes, that was once again tinkering with some piece of metal, Mei Hatsume. He really must have done something bad, for God to punish him so hard. First being quirkless, not that it bothered him that much now, then this pink hurricane of destruction. What's next? Getting literally frozen by a teen with daddy issues. In all honesty, Izuku didn't know what to think of her. She seemed ultra hyper. She was all over the place, didn't know the definition of personal space, and if she couldn't find her tool, she borrowed it from someone. And above all things, she could cause anything to explode. Literally anything. Yesterday was proof of it. That thing she was building wasn't even connected to a power source and it still blasted, causing the whole studio to be filled with smoke and noise. Izuku still felt the ringing in his ears. But, as much as he wasn't fond of her, he had to admit, her talent was something to admire. Even Izuku, with his earlier possessed knowledge of machinery they were able to use, couldn't match up her sheer speed. Most of his class was only beginning to build the inventions, spending most of yesterday making blueprints and getting accustomed to the equipment. Izuku himself was nearing finishing, he just needed to screw some boards, add power, some finishing touches and he would be done. But Hatsume, she almost completed 2 inventions. First one was some kind of grapple gun, that was in form of an arm guard. The other being boots. He remembered how Power Loader had to all but throw her out of the lab, and he looked like he had struggled with it. Izuku pondered about it and he decided that if the need arise, he'll try and do his best to befriend her. Maybe they could bounce some ideas between themselves and find a middle ground, but only if it comes down to necessity. That girl was wild and would easily be able to send him flying, no doubt with one of her explosions. The bell rung and Izuku packed his things. Now it was lunchtime and once again he could relish in Lunch Rush's awesome cooking. Of course nothing would ever beat his mom's katsudon. Nope, never. Izuku took one more glance towards Hatsume only to find her desk empty, chair laying on the floor. This was it. Finally, after the agonizingly slow passing of time, she could finally let loose her mind, and just work and for good measure work some more. So many ideas, so many designs, so many babies to make. This was heaven, she had access to so much more raw material and their variety. Now, long gone were the days, where she had to search through garbage dumps. If she wanted something, she just needed to grab it from a storeroom and make sparks fly. She was so lucky that a day had about 70 hours. She only had to suffer through those stupid, useless lessons. Hello, she's Mei Hatsume, she didn't have time to sit around and just listen. It was so counterproductive, she didn't understand that. Why won't they just give them lab hours all the time? Or at the very least to her. So many new babies to make and who could do it better than her? No one. She was furious at her teacher. Power Docker. Super Loader. No matter, the big guy with the funny helmet. The audacity to throw her out, saying it's over for the day. What an atrocious thing to say. How dare he get her away from her baby-making spree? She should just make a special baby, that wouldn't allow him to do such a disrespectful thing. Yeah, that would do. That would be baby number 29. No matter, back to baby making. Just a few more twists of her screwdriver. Wait, was it hers? Yes. No. The one she'd picked up from the floor, when she was going back to her station with some more materials. Did it matter? Nah. And there. Finally, she finished her super duper mega awesome hovering boots. Damn her teacher, she could just do it yesterday and go make another ultra cute baby. She looked at her newest child with love, only a true mother could offer, checking her design again. She found some loose screws. That wouldn't do, she was just about to correct it, when she felt a hand on top on her shoulder. Who dares? I believe this is mine, said a guy, with a stern voice. She looked at the person, who had the balls to stop her. He was taller than her, with freckles on his cheeks and black greenish hair. He was glaring at her hand that held screwdriver. I found it on the floor, she huffed at him. Really, what was with people interrupting her work? Was it some kind of competition? It pissed her off. Yeah, I've put it there to have it near my hand. Oh, that would explain it. I need it, besides mine has gone somewhere. She really hoped that this guy would just go away. You mean that one? He asked, taking out her screwdriver from the pile of metal sheets. So that was where she left it. Can I have mine, please? I need it to complete my work. Mei just shrugged it off, and they exchanged their tools. She felt somewhat bad for it. Just for a split of a second, she interrupted him in his baby making. No matter, now she could just test how her new baby worked and go to the next one. Are you about to do a check on it? Freckles asked. Why was he still here? She turned and found his eyes focused on her baby, interest evident in his gaze. Oh, so he wanted to witness the greatness of Mei Hatsume and her cute baby. She grinned at the potential future fan of her work. Why not give him a show? Yes, you wanna see? She asked excited. He simply nodded. She was just about to take them and put them on her feet. Did you check it functionality? What is wrong with him hindering her at every move she made? I'm just about to. She answered, her patience running thin. I meant dry test, to just see if it turns on correctly. It's powered by accumulators, right? Did you run a numbers to ensure if it was too much or too little? He told her, crossing his arms on his chest, looking at her eyes. Did she run the numbers? Yes. Once. One time was enough. Yeah, in my head. Let me guess. You did it once. He sounded somewhat done. She just nodded and he facepalmed. What? Was once not enough? Then he did an unthinkable. He took one boot, unscrewed the back panel and started checking her work. Now that wouldn't do. She would give him a piece of her mind. She was just about to show him her fury when he interrupted her again. It's loose. He said, pointing at one of the wires there. She took boot from him. It was not. No way that great Mei Hatsume would miss something like that. The cable was totally loose. Just her grabbing her awesome baby caused it to fall out halfway through her mess of wires. And then some more followed. Well, what was a problem? It could no doubt cause her cute baby to not work at all or lead to some kind of malfunction. You're welcome, Hatsume-san. He said with deadpanned voice, blinking at her. Thanks, I guess. She laid it down on her benchtop, frowning deeply. How could she miss this? Then came a rumbling sound. Maybe a storm was coming. Hatsume-san. Freckles said, gaining her attention. Are you hungry? When was the last time you ate? He had worried expression. Wait, hungry? Was she hungry? She knew what hunger was. Now that she thought of it, that would be a very possible explanation for that weird feeling in her stomach. She had it before, she was sure of it. It always interrupted her work, so she just ignored it. Just like sleepiness. Nothing was more important than her babies. Dunno, maybe yesterday. Why do you ask? She started tinkering with the other boot. Yup, same case here. Lots of loose cables. Really, how did that slip through? She heard Green sigh loudly and ask something to their teacher. Well, she would thank him later. He just saved her adorable baby, he deserved simple thank you. Then her world turned upside down and she was looking at the floor. She saw herself moving, but that couldn't be possible. Her feet didn't touch the ground. She looked behind her and saw Freckles, or more exactly the back of his head. He was carrying her over her shoulder, taking them away from the workshop, where a cheer of happiness rung. What are you doing? She asked while struggling against his grasp. He had some nice muscles there. Wait, focus her babies. Taking you to the cafeteria. Lunch rush is still around, so he can make you something to eat. He simply stated. I don't wanna. I need to go back and make some more babies. Mei cried. Why didn't they understand the importance of her work? Babies. He asked confused. Oh, you man your inventions. That's cute, I guess. Even makes sense in some way. He chuckled a bit. Mei ceased her struggling and looked at him with bewilderment. He understood. Finally. Someone understood. Now to somehow persuade him into going back to lab and continue her glorious baby making. You need to eat, Hatsume-san, he said sternly. Could he read minds? When you're hungry, your work suffers. Lie, she worked at her best every time. Occasional screwing up was just part of her work. My mom always says that a hungry inventor is bad inventor. I've found myself agreeing with that statement. With an empty stomach, our minds don't have the fuel necessary to work correctly, causing mistakes. Same case with sleep, although I think it's a bit cynical of me to say that. He laughed at that. He had a nice laugh, she noted. Well, that made some sense, and some treacherous part of her mind agreed with him. Her brain supplied her with memories of being more efficient, having ate and slept a few hours. Okay, so maybe Green had a point, big deal. They entered the empty cafeteria. Freckles sat her at the bench and then he went to buy food. That was her chance. She could make a break and go back to her adorable baby. She rose her body, or at the very least tried. It felt heavy, like it weighted actual tones. Her muscles didn't respond to her pleads, and that feeling in her stomach grew even more uncomfortable. What was going on? There you go. Green said, presenting her with full tray of food. It smelled good. Well, she wasn't one to say no to the free food. Holy crap. This was delicious. How come no one told her about it? She took the next bite and another one, almost choking while inhaling the tasty meal. Maybe she would pay a visit here from time to time. She looked up at Freckles and found him smiling so brightly that she mistook it with the sun. Thanks, I guess. She said, confused between bites. Just happy to help. His smile changed to one more kinder, and Mei found herself charmed by it. He seemed like a nice guy. They sat in silence, only interrupted by her chewing. She should be content with it. But she wasn't. This guy was different than just anybody else. Normally people looked at her weirdly and tried to avoid her. And she was fine with it. More time for her babies. But him, Freckles, he seemed like he understood her and her mind. At least it seemed that way. So Mei decided that she's going to do something new. Socialize. It started somewhat awkward at first, but then she wasn't sure when her food vanished and how much time they've spent just talking, laughing and bouncing off ideas. It was so exciting to find a kindred spirit. Green turned out to be such great company. And he had muscles, her mind added. Muscles, great brain, and understood her without a hitch. Yeah, he was kinda plain looking, but it didn't matter. He would make a fine partner. In her baby making, of course, her dear children could use a father. Hey, Hatsume-san. Not that I'm complaining, but why do you keep calling me Freckles, Green, or Muscles? He asked, scratching his temple, blushing lightly. I don't know your name. That was it. Plain and simple. He looked at her stupefied. You don't know. His voice deadpanned. She just shook her head. What about our classmates? Another shake. Teachers. Third time and sold to the big-headed, curly-haired nerd. He laughed and sent her an amused smile. Did she say something funny? He extended his hand. Izuku Midoriya, pleased to meet you, Hatsume-san. She took his hand into hers. It was rough, good kind of rough. It's plain. Your name, that is. He laughed. So I've been told, he said, before sighing lightly. We should go back. Mei nodded in agreement, and stood with him, ready to follow him out. They walked back in comfortable silence. Mei pondered about how to ask him if he wanted to make babies with her from time to time. No, wait, all the time. That sounded so much better. Should she just say it? Or maybe she should somehow lead him to propose it. Hey, Hatsume-san. He said, looking toward her with a small, kind smile. How about I finish my work, and I help you with fixing your hover boots? She loved problems that solved themselves. Yeah, I'd like that, Izuku. Mei bounced up and down, not even trying to contain her excitement. Izuku. He shouted, his face red and mouth open. Mei tilted her head. Yeah, it's less plain than your surname and shorter. The less we need to call each other, the more time we have to work on babies together. Her logic was as always perfect. Izuku's face reddened some more and then laughed loud and friendly, holding his stomach. She liked that sound. Well then, I suppose that I need to call you Mei in exchange, don't I? He said, smirking. Knew you would get it. She said, punching him lightly in the arm and laughing some. They continued their walk, thinking about the wonderful start of a marvelous friendship. By the way Mei, your hands are really soft and nice to touch. Why were her cheeks hot? Chapter 6. Panic and Revelations. Why? How? Those two questions were constantly popping in his head, exchanging places, mixing together and giving him the headache of a lifetime. Power Loader, who was their homeroom teacher, after doing morning call of presence and saying some basic news, dropped a bomb on them. Choose your class representatives. Was all he said. And suddenly almost all eyes were on him, their smiling faces, politely, asking him to take the role of class president, and Izuku couldn't wrap his head around it. Him, the nerdy teenager, whose best friend was a computer program. What in the freaking hell? He was anything but social. Sure, he bossed a bit around the store when Stan wasn't there, and after his death everyone called him boss, despite him stating that he would only swing by every other day if he wasn't busy. Izuku asked them for their reasoning and honestly their answer made him snort. Apparently he tamed Mei, explosive hurricane, Hatsume. Someone said that he was also super smart. He wanted to correct them, he didn't tame Mei. He, despite his earlier thoughts, befriended her. He took his time to understand her by the long conversation they held yesterday. That was all. She was still super hyper girl, that would make them go flying if someone, most likely him, didn't check on her inventions. To prove their point, that Mei would only listen to him, they started calling her, trying to gain her attention and failing miserably at it. Then he just simply said her name, ignoring curious gazes from his class. Like charmed, Mei stopped playing with her goggles, and looked toward him with the curiously of little puppy. When asked who she thought would be a perfect for class president, she just glanced at him, from his toes to head, shrugged and told them that he was. Izuku wasn't sure if he was supposed to be flattered or murder her. Not wanting to be the only one suffering, he proposed Mei as his deputy, which everyone immediately agreed. Pleased with himself he returned toward his seat. Then, when Power Loader said they could do what they wanted for the rest of the homeroom, he saw a message from Alan, which destroyed his sense of accomplishment. Message being, you do realize, that you'll have to take her bulk of the work, genius. Alan helpful as always. When lunch came around Izuku made his way toward the cafeteria. Mei's presence was surprising, but not unwelcome. They grabbed their trays, filled them with delicious food and managed to secure a small, vacant table just for themselves. The rest of their class went somewhere else, which was absolutely fine by them. Izuku was used to eat alone and by the looks of it, Mei wasn't bothered either. Maybe they had more in common than he thought. Not long after, they indulged themselves in chaotic, but completely understandable for them, conversation. But really, why don't you get the superiority of a simple switch or button? Mei huffed, sending him glare with no bite behind it. I'm not saying that they aren't useful. Izuku stated calmly, enjoying her adorable pouty face. But it's not always the best solution. How so? She tilted her head, blinking, clueless expression evident on her features. Think about it. You want to make a super advanced, high-tech baby. He was surprised by how natural it sounded and Mei literally started drooling at the possibility. And that baby would have many, many features. The amount of buttons, switches and wires you'd have to use to make it functional would be downward nuts. It's easier to just program it and do voice or a gesture command. He didn't tell her he was describing his future billet into heroics. Mei pursed her lips and folded her arms, while her eyes roamed around. Wait, were those lines in her irises spinning? Did it have to do anything with her quirk? He should ask later. Well, I suppose you are right. She sounded like admitting it caused her real pain. But I can't really do all that programming stuff. Her shoulders slumped down. Didn't you try to learn? Programming for him was just like breathing. He spent most of his childhood learning how to properly do it. The reward of his efforts. Alan. I've tried, but I get lost in it and it's super boring. Mei whined loudly, making Izuku chuckle. Well, I consider myself rather good at it, so if you want I can teach you. He flashed a kind smile toward her. Mei instantly perked up and grinned. Really? You would teach me? Of course, we're friends now. Friends. Yeah, that sounded nice. Thanks, Izuku. Mei bounced cutely in her seat, behaving like a little kid hearing it's going to get a candy for doing nothing. Man, it must be really nice to have an intelligence quirk. Izuku blinked. That was the moment he was dreading. Normally questioning about your quirk was asked even before the one for your name. He remembered all those woeful times when he was asked about it by someone, to only hear his answer that made them turn around and go away as far as possible. Sighing, he decided to just get it out of the way. If Mei didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore, he would manage, just like he always does. It would sting, and deal a serious blow to his mood, resulting in him sulking for a few days. But he'd take it like a man he is. I don't have an intelligence quirk. He saw Mei blink at him. In truth, I don't have one at all. I'm quirkless. He waited. Waited for her to laugh at him. To just stand up and go away. To scream at the whole cafeteria and tell everyone that he doesn't have what almost everyone else does. That's amazing. Mei shouted, suddenly right in front of him. Giant grin plastered on her face and eyes shining with excitement. Her eyes were really pretty, Izuku duly noted. So all those ideas and all just come from your brain without any kind of boost. Izuku just nodded dumbly, not being able to process what was going on. Wow. She sat back, but still looked at him with a flabbergasted expression. You're really awesome then, Izuku. Her voice was soft, but it carried so much power. He should have thought better than this of his friend. It was Mei for crying out loud. All she cared about was making new babies, and having a blast while doing so. She was really simple, straightforward person, but there was also something beautiful about it. Hey, why are you crying? Mei's concerned voice brought him back to earth. Was he? He felt his cheeks wet. Izuku wiped his tears away and sent her the happiest smile he could muster. It's just, not many think about me like that. So. Thank you, Mei. He saw her smile. Not her usual Cheshire cat grin. Just a normal, simple, kind-hearted smile. It really suited her. Before they could continue their conversation, an obnoxious alarm came to life and with it panic. He heard the generic computer voice calling a level 3 security breach. He vaguely remembered something about it being trespassing. They tried to move aside to avoid the panicked student mass of teenagers, but they were swept by the current and found themselves unable to move like they wanted. Suddenly they were separated by the mob trying to squeeze forward. He pushed through, slowly gaining ground in the general direction he saw her disappear. He stood up on his toes to get a better view, and there. He saw her pink dreadlock and then Mei herself, pushed against a wall, trying to protect her head with her arms. His heroic heart beat harder and small spark of anger ignited in him. Shoving himself toward his friend, ignoring everyone on his way, he finally arrived in front of her. He then shielded her with his body, supporting himself with the arm against the wall. Don't worry, I am here, he said loudly. Her relieved expression, and a small grateful smile was worth all those elbows striking his ribs and back. What the hell was going on? It was UA, surely they had to have some security drills. He became frustrated at himself. Why couldn't he do something? Except he could. Or more precisely Alan could. If he was able to reach toward his pocket. Unfortunately for him, they were boxed against people and his arm moving was not possible. Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. Mei. I need you to reach toward my left pocket and put its content on my ear. Why? She shouted loudly, her voice muffled by his shoulder. No time. Do it now. He felt her arm move and take the earpiece from his pants. She had trouble reaching towards his face due to how crammed they were, so he tilted his head to the best of his ability. Soon he felt familiar plastic on his ear. Alan. What is going on? There have been a security breach. Someone is uninvited is on the school grounds. So he was correct. Frowning deeply and getting hit again by someone's elbow, he quickly went over his options. I need you to check every camera and tell me what is going on. We need to get it under control. At once, sir. There are only about 700 of them. No time for sass. Really? Where did he make a mistake with his beloved AI? I've got the issue. It's the reporters from this morning. Somehow they got in the premises. Those vultures. Izuku saw them when he wanted to enter school, like a pack of wolves blocking the main entrance. All they wanted was any piece of info about All Might teaching here. When he told them he was from support, they ignored him, which suited him nicely. But now, didn't they know they just broke several laws? Alan, use the school audio system and relay that info. Let's hope it's enough to calm these animals. He wasn't one to insult others right off the bat, but excuse him. He could feel bruises forming on his ribs. As soon Alan's voice came through the intercom, everyone ceased their flailing and evacuation proceeded in orderly fashion, just how it should been done in the first place. You okay, Mei? He asked, worried she got hurt in the whole ordeal. Yeah, I'm good now. She breathed slowly. Then sent him a sharp glare, which made him nervous. What was that back there? And what is the deal with that earpiece? Izuku blinked and chuckled a bit. Leave it to Mei to completely diminish the thought of them almost being trampled to death just to learn about some invention. Well, you remember that computer voice that we hear from time to time during lessons? He was amused at the memory when he saw his class going into uproar of questions, geeking out. Mei nodded to him, Izuku smirked, passing her his earpiece. Well, let's just say I'm a very proud father. He thanked God for giving him such good photographic memory, because now he will always remember her jaw-dropped face. I knew you were awesome. She shouted, hugging him. He had to admit, she was strong, despite her small build. You're pretty awesome yourself, Mei. He said, returning the hug. Come on, we need to get to the evacuation side for the head count. Only hours later he'd realized that he had a beautiful girl, and her goodies, pressed tightly against him, turning him into human tomato. Nezu frowned deeply at the, now turned to scrap, UA barrier. He didn't want students to see this, so he sent them out using other entrances, exists. He took a closer look at the chunks of metal laying on the ground. Some of them were in one piece, but most of it looked like it corroded and turned into dust. He looked to his sides. Aizawa and Majima also weren't pleased with the state of it either. They already checked all of those unexpected guests. None of them had a quirk similar, or powerful enough to do this kind of damage. The only other conclusion being the involvement of a third party. That particular thought greatly disturbed Nezu. The whole thing looked like some kind of declaration of war, only question being, who was responsible for it. Nezu took his phone from his pocket. Alan, do you have any security footage showing someone other than reporters entering school grounds? 1 second, Principal, I'm afraid not. There is no camera observing the other side of the school gate. So 0 leads then. Nezu's frown deepened greatly. All those sensors picked up someone blinking into existence near the teacher's lounge. Now, that was something valuable. Did you say, blinking? Aizawa voiced Nezu's thought. Yes. They seemed to appear out of nowhere and a minute later they disappeared. Unfortunately no camera caught who it was and there is none of them in the room itself. Thank you, Alan. Nezu said shortly. His mind was being occupied by many unsettling things. Looks like their enemy possessed a warping quirk, which was a real rarity, even more uncommon than healing ones. He'd need to develop countermeasurements. His hope that he'd have them in time. Chapter 7. A Creative Alliance. Something wasn't right. When the teachers told them to leave school using side entrances, he knew that there was information they were missing. So after he accompanied Mei to the train station, and returning home, he sat on his office chair staring blankly at the wall for hours. Pursing his lips after coming empty-handed, he deducted that he would need to use the so-called Big Brother. Alan, you there? Izuku spun toward his monitor, which immediately lighted up. If I say no, would you finally go to sleep, sir? It's close to midnight now. You know the answer is no. He chuckled slightly. There go my hopes and dreams. Izuku could imagine him sighing. What do you need me for, sir? What happened at the main entrance today? He decided to cut the chase. He needed to satisfy his curiosity. Reporters broke in. That I know, but how? Izuku narrowed his eyes. Don't try to sell me any crap, Alan, you know, that I can just open your detailed thought process. He wouldn't do it, and AI knew it. It was invasion of Alan's privacy, even if he was a program he wrote, he's a human being to him. Besides he passed the Turing test. You do realize, sir, that you want me to reveal information that only teachers and police have access to. Yup. Then was a short silence between them, but Izuku saw Alan downloading few files. And I thought, you wanted to be a hero. The sassy AI stated, making him snort. Alan showed him a video in which he saw the famous UA barrier falling apart, some of it turning into dust, and a mass of reporters pouring in, running toward the school like a bunch of animals. There's no way that he'll ever remotely like media. The percent of truth they gave to society was so small, that Izuku long ago stopped watching news channels. Then Alan showed him the school detector log and building map, explaining the situation. So, whoever did that waited till lunch to have most of the corridors empty, and used reporters as a diversion to lure the teachers out of their lounge. Izuku said, drumming his fingers against his desk. Correct, sir. Are you perhaps Sherlock Holmes in disguise? He huffed, not amused by Alan's comparison. Are there any street cameras that show UA entrance? Why do you ask, sir? AI asked suspiciously. Because if there are any, I want you to break into the city cameras system and find the feeds. Izuku stated seriously. He wanted to protect his school and schoolmates from any kind of danger. That's what a hero would do. I didn't know that we switched business to villainy, sir. Cheeky program retorted. Izuku let out humorless laugh. Are there any, or no? Unfortunately, sir, there's none. The two closest ones are at the junctions, which is quite far away from the gate. He sighed slightly, waving to Alan, signaling that he was done for now. Slipping under his duvet, and finding a comfortable position, he drifted to sleep. Tomorrow was going to be hectic, so he needed as much energy as he could get. And hectic it was. He could see some seniors from the hero course, going around the school, keeping a keen eye on any sign of trouble. Teachers constantly doing head counts, and looking behind their shoulders, like something was going to strike them at any given moment. And he couldn't really blame them, as he also felt that strange kind of dread, keeping him on high alert. He informed Power Loader that he's going to be slightly late for lab. When asked for a reason, he answered, going to visit our beloved psychopath. Power Loader just laughed at it. When he told Mei that he wasn't going to stay for the whole lunch, just a quick meal, she happily exclaimed that she's going to get a head start with today's dose of baby making. He made her swear that she's going to eat something later, on which she reluctantly agreed. She was going to be the death of him, he was sure of it. He made his way towards the principal office. His mind mulling over everything he wanted to say, he foresighted it to be a longer than simple chat, but this was important. If he was going to be a hero, then he'd need to start somewhere. Helping his principal with upgrading school defenses seemed like a good start. The humongous double doors that hid Nezu's office from the world at the end of the corridor opened, and through them stepped out a walking skeleton. This man was so thin and sickly looking that Izuku thought a simple breeze would knock him over. Shoulders slouched forward, blonde hair in total mess and eyes sunken deeply into skull. And why was he wearing a suit, at least 4 times his size? Suddenly the man started coughing, putting his hand against his mouth. It sounded wet, and like his lungs were going to be ripped from his insides. Izuku quickened his step, gave the man an arm over his shoulder and started massaging his back in circles. It always worked for him, so maybe it'd be helpful here. After a few moments it seemed to be working. The man's breathing returned to normal, and he unclasped his hand, showing Izuku red spots marking it. Without a second thought he pulled his package of small tissues, and gave man one, who looked thankful, albeit a little surprised. "Thank you, young man." Then Izuku's mind came to an abrupt stop, 1,000 red flags rising up per second. Despite his voice being raspy, he knew it. Getting a quick reboot, he did a fast checkup. Super tall. Check. Suit that could contain mountain of muscles. Check. Blonde hair with 2 bangs in front. Check. Electric blue eyes. Check. Ultra familiar voice calling him, young man. Check, and check. He was sure, he was mumbling at Mach 1 speed, but it didn't matter. Shocked, he could only ask for confirmation. All Might. Where? Man shouted, and started nervously looking around. Yup, that confirmed his suspicions. Folding his arms on his chest, and hardening his gaze, he could only press forward. I'm not going to be kid by such a simple trick, All Might. Beside I can't ask Alan to do voice comparison. He didn't mean to sound so rude, it just sort of happened. All Might sighed in defeat, and frowned deeply. He waited, and waited, and waited, staring at Izuku nervously. Don't you have some questions? He finally asked. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Questions? Oh believe me, I do have a ton of them. And most likely after you answer them, I'll have some more, but right now I'm too busy, so maybe someday later. He stated, simply scratching his cheek. All Might blinked at him, shock evident on his face. Why aren't you like, I don't know, freaking up or something? Izuku sighed, resting his hand on his hips. Too much on my head right now. I'm going to freak up at some ungodly hour at night, when I'll have time. He really would do it later. All Might watched him for a moment more, before he chuckled. You really are something else, young Midoriya. He smiled softly. Just keep it to yourself, please. It's important to me. His voice was serious, which wasn't that surprising. I know. I'm not the kind of teenager to gossip. Besides, you're my 3rd favorite hero. Izuku smiled a bit. I need to get going. See you later, all. No wait, I shouldn't call you that. Izuku frowned, thinking of proper way to address the symbol of peace. My name is Toshinori Yagi, my boy. All, Yagi-san stated. Thanks. See you later, Yagi-san. Izuku stepped through the giant door into the principal's office. It seemed that nothing has changed from his last visit here. Spacious, fluffy red floor-covering carpet, dark wood furniture, most of them being bookshelves filled with books and folders. At the center stood Nezu's giant desk, that was completely covered with huge stacks of neatly sorted papers, behind it a large UA logo. Oh, young Midoriya, what a pleasant surprise. Nezu said from the armchair in his conversation area, near the windows. Come, and sit down on the couch. Tea is still warm, so maybe you would like some. Principal sent him a polite smile. Izuku smiled back as he nodded. He couldn't imagine a long talk with Nezu, without the cup of aromatic tea. Sitting on the couch, once again marveling at how comfortable this piece of furniture felt, he took his steaming cup, and sipped a little bit of the warm drink. He also vaguely wondered if it was Nezu coping all might with that young prefix, or the other way around. As good as always, he stated, giving the principal a smile of his own. They both sat in silence, and Izuku used it to sort through his thoughts, trying to predict how the conversation would go. He wasn't sure how to start it. So, why do I owe the pleasure of hosting a brilliant boy in my chambers? Well, that was one way to start a conversation, Izuku supposed. He knew that Nezu loved playing verbal games. Izuku also enjoyed them, but today he wanted to get straight to the point. Mirroring Nezu's posture, with his hands neatly folded on his lap, he sighed loudly. I'll cut the chase and get to the essence of this visit. I know exactly what transpired yesterday, courtesy of Alan. He looked right into Nezu's eyes while saying it. A smirk passed the principal features, before returning to the small smile, but his eyes shone with excitement and mischief. My, young Midoriya, I've never imagined that you would even consider doing a thing that could cause you to be expelled. He said with small chuckle at the end. Izuku's lips twitched slightly. I'm a future hero. You cannot expect me to sit quietly, and do nothing. Nezu allowed himself to let out a short laugh. What is the point of your visit then, if you already possess the information? I want to offer solutions that are going to keep the school safer. He smirked, and leaned a bit forward. Consider it a help from a beloved student, good friend, or business partner. Choose a more suiting one. Nezu's lips stretched further, bouncing in his seat. I'm all ears. His small ears twitched when he said that. Izuku drank his tea before continuing. For starters, digitize all information about students, teachers, school schedules, and other important documents. To protect them even further, create a special server for them, that's going to be completely separated from school network, and only accessible through Alan. Don't worry, he's too advanced to be hacked by someone who doesn't know how he operates. Izuku saw Nezu nod, a pleased smile on his face. Next step is to increase the number of cameras, especially ones looking at the gates. In school there's still some blind spots that could be covered. Alan already marked them on the building plan, and delivered them to you for inspection. He took a breath, so far so good. And lastly, a countermeasurement towards the warp quirk user. At that the principal shifted slightly. As it was documented, all warp quirks leave the trace of their energy behind, whenever the portal is opened. I believe that I mean Hatsume-san, can build a device that would be able to track that energy, and alarm us before portal is fully open. Of course we need to get a good read on it to ensure it works as desired, but it's doable. He took another sip, chastising himself in his head for the slip with Mei's name. Also, I believe it would be wise to reschedule UA Sport Festival, and to further improve security. We don't want a villain attack on such an important day. Nezu stared at him for a moment or two, before smiling brightly and clapping his paws. I'm impressed, young Midoriya. To think that it took you only half a day to come up with those solutions, maybe even less. Oh, and don't worry about the way you called young Hatsume. Power Loader already informed me about your friendship and partnership in the called baby making. Principal laughed at the end. Izuku was sure Nezu had a good cackling session when he first heard the term. It's nothing really. I'm just doing the natural thing, and using my abilities to protect this school. And for that I'm thankful. You're going to become a marvelous hero one day, young Midoriya. Principal stated with a kind smile. When could that device be done? Izuku adopted his thinking position. I could most likely get a design ready for it today, and we could start building it during Saturday's open lab hours. If you could allow us to have it accessible on Sunday, then at the beginning of the week it's going to be most likely ready to use. Consider it done. They both sat in silence, drinking their tea. Izuku was pleased with how the conversation went. He felt even a bit proud of himself. Was that the feeling heroes had when they're able to help people around them? He could get used to it pretty quickly. Now, is that all, or do you have something more that involved breaking the law? Nezu asked with an amused smile. Izuku was sure that he's never going to ever live that one through. Actually yes. But it's more of personal request. You see, I'm having a bit of trouble with getting one material. I've placed my request for it, but its arrival is still far away, and it's going to be a major setback in my work. Oh, is it for that project? Nezu asked with an excited voice. Yes. I assume that you remember your deal about it, right? The principal asked, and Izuku simply nodded. Am I correct to assume that you want to ask me to pull some strings and get it shipped faster? Another nod, this time more sheepish one. I see. Unfortunately, it's Power Loader who holds more power in that department, and if he can't get it earlier, that surely I don't have better chances. Izuku frowned at that. He really hoped to start already on it. He had most of the materials ready and even upgraded them with school supplies, at which Mei helped him. She even gave him some tips at how to better do a thing or two. But do not worry, young Midoriya. I do believe I have a solution for your problem. Nezu said with wide grin. Momo waited for her class to empty itself. She needed to ask Aizawa-sensei about the specifics of her new duty as a class president, which unfortunately she didn't have time yesterday, due to the earlier release of the students. She gladly took that position when it was presented to her. She was also pleased that she convinced her classmates to give Asui-san the position of her deputy, when she tied with Iida-san. She didn't have anything against him, she respected his determination, but she felt that he wasn't suited for that role. He seemed a bit too passionate about everything. She preferred the more level-headed frog girl. She also couldn't deny her utter happiness when Mineta lost the election. She feared what would happen to her and other girls if little perverted student would be given power. Not that it had ever going to become reality. She was the last one to leave from her classmates, and caught Aizawa-sensei nearing the exit. That was her chance. The teacher opened the door, and paused, looking down. Oh, genius boy. What do you want? Aizawa-sensei said in his usual tired voice. Genius boy, Momo heard the term before. Mike-sensei, and Midnight-sensei said it a few times while thanking Alan for something. Apparently that was their way of referring towards the AI's creator. She shivered at the memory of Midnight-sensei admitting how she loved to play with the poor boy. That would be considered as an assault, right? Eraserhead. Oh, so you're 1A's homeroom teacher. Hope you're not too hard on them. Genius boy, said. Wait, Momo knew that voice. She heard it many times before, and there's no way that she could mistake it with someone else. Stepping next to the Aizawa